The desert night was silent, only the wind whispering across the sand. Ethan Cole, a human engineer, sat in his small workshop at the edge of the colony. Repairing a broken drone, he was tired, dusty, and lonely. A man who once built ships for the stars, but now fixed machines no one cared about. Then the ground trembled. A deep roar echoed from the horizon, and a streak of fire cut across the dark sky. It wasn't a meteor. Ethan could tell by the controlled descent. The way the flames flickered blue instead of orange, something or someone was crashing. He grabbed his old field kit and ran toward the burning trail. Boots sinking into the sand, his lungs burned, his heart raced. But curiosity pushed him forward. When he reached the crash site, he saw a half-buried pod, smooth, silver, and alive with faint energy pulses. It wasn't human technology. The shape was too organic. Like bone and metal fused together, steam hissed from the cracked hull. And inside, a voice cried weakly. Ethan forced the hatch open, heat blasting his face. And what he saw made him freeze? A woman, no. Not human. An alien mother lay inside, her skin pale blue and glowing faintly in the moonlight. Her breathing was shallow, her chest rising in pain. And in her arms, she held 3 small egg-shaped pods, trembling with light. The translator on Ethan's wrist flickered to life, trying to match the strange sounds coming from her lips. Help. Please, my children. It translated in a trembling tone. Ethan hesitated, looking around the desert. Number rescue? No colony ships, just endless sand. If he called the colony authorities, they would take her away. Maybe even study her children. If he helped her, he would be breaking the alien quarantine law, a crime that could end his life on this planet. But when he looked into her eyes, he saw fear, not threat. He made his choice. Hang on, he whispered, lifting her gently out of the pod. Her body was light, fragile, and burning with fever. The small pods pulsed softly, glowing in different colors, one silver, one gold, one pale violet. He carried her back to his workshop, each step heavy, each breath filled with dust and doubt. Behind him, the alien ship flickered and died, sinking slowly into the sand. The night swallowed its last spark. Inside the workshop, Ethan laid her on the cot, covering her with a blanket. He checked her pulse, weak but steady. Her body temperature was higher than any human could survive. Yet she clung to life, whispering words he didn't understand. He set the egg pods in a warm container, connecting a heat regulator to mimic the pod's glow. For hours, he worked silently, stabilizing her breathing, sealing wounds with med gel. Finally, she opened her eyes, glowing faintly like 2 small stars. You, human. The translator struggled to catch her voice. Ethan smiled softly. Yeah, human. You're safe here. She touched his hand with trembling fingers, leaving a faint blue mark that shimmered under his skin, her eyes filled with tears. Thank you. My children. Ethan turned to the pods, curious. They'll be fine. I promise. But before he could say more, the ground shook again, a low, distant rumble like thunder. He rushed outside, scanning the dark horizon. 3 colony patrol drones hovered far away, sweeping their lights across the desert. Searching, they must have detected the crash. And they were coming closer. Ethan's heart pounded. He ran back inside, dimming the lights and covering the windows. The alien mother stirred, whispering, "Hide them, please." He nodded quickly, hiding the glowing pods under a thermal blanket near the heating unit. Minutes felt like hours. The drones passed overhead, beams slicing across the sand. One light brushed the edge of his workshop, and Ethan froze, hand on the switch, ready to kill the power, but the light moved away. The sound faded into the distance. Only then did he breathe again, when he turned around. The alien mother was looking at him, weak but peaceful. "You saved us," she said softly. I am Vera of Villari." Her voice was fading, her eyes flickering like dying stars. "Vera, stay with me?" Ethan urged, holding her hand, but she shook her head slowly. "My time. Gone, but they must live," she whispered, glancing at the pods. Blue tears rolled down her cheeks as she smiled faintly. "You will be their father now." Ethan froze, not sure what she meant. Then the blue mark on his hand glowed brighter, spreading faint light through his veins. A soft hum filled the air, and the 3 pods began to pulse and sync with his heartbeat. He stared in awe as one cracked slightly, a tiny hand pressing against the glass-like shell. Vera exhaled one final breath, her body shimmering before turning still. Outside, the first light of dawn touched the desert sands. Ethan knelt beside her, silent, his throat tight. He whispered, "I'll take care of them. I promise." Then he looked at the glowing pods, small, alive, and waiting. The wind carried his words across the desert, a human vow to an alien mother. Behind him, the horizon blazed with sunrise. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt something he thought he had lost: hope. Morning light poured through the cracks of Ethan's workshop, touching the dusty floor with gold. The alien mother, Vera, lay still on the cot, her pale blue skin glowing faintly under the soft sun. Ethan sat beside her, silent, his mind racing between grief and disbelief. She was gone. But the faint hum of the pods beside her reminded him that life still remained. He looked at the 3 egg-shaped pods resting in the container, pulsing gently with soft light. Each one shimmered in a different color: silver, gold, and violet. The marks on his hand glowed every time they pulsed, syncing with his heartbeat. It felt like the universe was whispering through them. Something ancient and alive. Ethan leaned closer, watching the thin membranes tremble. Inside, faint shapes moved, small and delicate. Then a crack formed, followed by another, a sound like crystal breaking underwater. The first pod split open, and a tiny figure slid out, covered in faint liquid, gasping softly. Its eyes opened, large, silver, and full of light. It wasn't human, but it looked back at Ethan with recognition, like it already knew him. The second and third pods broke soon after, revealing 2 more tiny creatures. One golden-eyed and calm, one violet and restless. They were no bigger than his arms, their translucent skin glowing faintly as if filled with starlight. Ethan quickly wrapped them in warm cloth and placed them near the heater. His heart trembled as they reached out, touching his fingers with soft hands. He whispered, "Hey there, little ones. You made it." Then something strange happened. As the 3 small beings touched his marked hand, a faint wave of energy passed between them. Ethan felt their emotions: confusion, warmth, fear, and then peace. It wasn't speech, but connection. They could feel him, and he could feel them. Vera's final words echoed in his mind: "You will be their father now." For the next few hours, Ethan worked nonstop. He created makeshift cradles from storage containers, cleaned the air filters, and set up heating units. He fed the triplets a nutrient mixture, carefully adjusting it until they accepted it. Every small sound they made, a hum, a chirp, a sleepy sigh, filled the workshop with strange, gentle life. He named them silently in his mind. The curious silver-eyed one became Lyra, the calm golden one, Nilo, the loud violet-eyed one, Marin. 3 small souls, born from stars, now breathing under his care. But peace didn't last long. By evening, the colony alert systems activated. Ethan heard distant sirens echoing across the dunes. He stepped outside, scanning the sky. A patrol transport was moving slowly across the desert, searching the crash site again. They were looking for something, maybe tracking residual alien energy. If they found the pods or the children, it would be over. Ethan ran back inside, heart pounding. He turned off the lights, silenced every tool, and hid the triplets inside a hidden maintenance bay, under the floor. They didn't cry, almost as if they could sense his fear. He whispered, "Stay quiet, I'll keep you safe." Moments later, a voice echoed from outside the workshop. "Colonist Cole, this is Patrol Unit Gamma." "Open the door." He froze, breathing hard. The knock came again, louder. "We detected non-human energy nearby." "Step out for inspection." Ethan opened the door halfway. Trying to look calm, two officers in gray armor stood there, scanners glowing in their hands. One asked, "You live alone out here?" "Yes, just me and a few old machines," Ethan replied. Forcing a smile, the scanner beeped once. Faintly, then went silent. The officer frowned but didn't press further. "Report if you see any debris or survivors," he said, turning away. Ethan nodded, closing the door slowly, heart still racing. He waited until their hovercraft disappeared into the dust. Only then did he exhale and open the hatch to the maintenance bay. 3 small faces looked up at him, glowing softly in the dark. Lyra reached out a hand and touched his cheek. Ethan smiled. "You're safe now." That night, he buried Vera under the twin suns, marking the grave with a small piece of her ship's hull. He said quietly, "Rest easy, I'll protect them." "I promise." When he returned inside, the triplets were asleep, curled together like a tiny constellation. For a moment, Ethan just watched them. They were aliens, yes, but they were also children, innocent and trusting. And for the first time in years, his lonely workshop felt like a home. As the twin moons rose high above the dunes, Ethan sat by the window, watching the stars. The mark on his hand glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the sleeping triplets. He didn't understand it fully, but he knew it meant something sacred. Maybe it was destiny, maybe it was fate. All he knew was that a dying mother's last wish had become his life's purpose. He whispered to the night, "You're not alone anymore." Outside, the wind carried his promise through the desert, a promise that would soon echo across worlds. Weeks turned into months, and the lonely workshop in the desert was no longer silent. Ethan Cole's life had changed completely. Where once there was only the hum of old machines, now came laughter, soft songs, and the tiny footsteps of 3 alien children, Lyra, Nilo, and Marin. The Velari triplets were growing fast, far faster than any human child. Their skin shimmered under the light. Their eyes reflected emotions like mirrors. And they called Ethan one word that melted his heart every time. "Ga." He smiled each time they said it, though part of him still didn't understand how they knew. The biomark on his hand glowed whenever they touched him, a link between their hearts and his. He could feel their joy, their fear, their hunger, even their dreams when they slept. It was more than a bond. It was connection, the kind only life itself could create. Each morning, Ethan woke early to prepare food. He taught the children how to use small tools, to draw in the sand, and to count with little pebbles. Lyra was curious, always asking questions with her glowing eyes. Nilo was calm, watching everything carefully. And Marin, wild and full of energy, often ran into the dunes chasing the wind. Ethan would laugh and chase after him, pretending to be angry, but never could be. He kept them hidden from the world. The colony had tightened its patrols, spreading rumors about illegal alien life forms in the region. Posters warned citizens to report strange lights or sounds. Ethan knew that if anyone found out, They would take the triplets away in the name of science. He couldn't let that happen. They weren't experiments. They were children, his children at night. The desert came alive with light storms, blue lightning dancing across the horizon. The triplets loved to watch it, standing by the window as Ethan told them stories about Earth, about oceans, trees, and rain. They listened with wide eyes, imagining a world they had never seen. Sometimes Lyra would whisper, "Home." Ethan would nod softly. Yes, maybe one day. But one evening, as he fixed a water line outside, he noticed something strange in the sand, small metallic prints. Not his. His heart tightened. He followed the tracks and found a small reconnaissance drone half buried near the dunes. Its lens cracked, but still active, red light blinking. Someone had been searching this area, and they were getting closer. He destroyed the drone quickly and returned home, heart pounding. He needed to be careful, more careful than ever. That night, he reinforced the walls with thermal shielding to hide heat signatures. He taught the children a game. If they ever heard the alarm sound, they had to go to the secret hatch under the floor and stay silent. They didn't understand why, but they obeyed. Their glowing eyes filled with trust. He wished he could explain the danger. But how do you tell children that the world outside wants to take them away? Days passed quietly again, and Ethan dared to believe they were safe. The triplets grew taller, learned to speak broken words of both human and Velari language. Their laughter echoed through the small home like sunlight on cold metal. Ethan sometimes forgot he was hiding from anyone at all. Then one night, he woke to a soft sound, footsteps. Light and unsure, he looked around. Panic rushing through him. The door to the workshop was open. Sand blowing inside. Lyra was missing. He grabbed his flashlight and ran into the dunes, calling her name softly. "Lyra, where are you?" He found her near the ridge, standing under the stars, looking up. In her small hands she held something, a glowing shard of her mother's old pod, buried half in the sand. Her eyes were full of wonder and sadness. "Mama," she whispered. Ethan's chest tightened. He walked over and hugged her. "I know, sweetheart. I miss her too." But above them, something blinked. A small red dot in the sky, a drone hovering silently. Watching them, recording, Ethan's blood went cold. He covered Lyra with his jacket and ran back toward the workshop. The drone followed for a few seconds before darting away into the darkness. He slammed the door shut and activated the jammer he had built from scrap. For a long time he sat there, trembling, holding Lyra close as the triplets huddled together. He knew what this meant. They had been seen. The next morning, the desert was quiet again, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching from beyond the dunes. He prepared emergency supplies, packed food, and checked his shuttle's old engines. If the colony forces came, he would have to run. But as he looked at the three small faces watching him with trust and innocence, he realized there was nowhere left to run. They weren't just his secret anymore. They were his reason to fight. That night, as the triplets fell asleep beside him, the blue mark on his hand glowed brighter than ever. It pulsed in rhythm with 3 small heartbeats. Ethan whispered to himself, "Whatever happens next, they'll have to go through me first." Outside, far beyond the dunes, a convoy of patrol vehicles began moving toward his sector, their scanners alive with alien readings. The storm was coming. And Ethan Cole, 1 man and 3 small children, stood at the edge of a battle that would decide the fate of more than just a family. The sun rose red over the dunes, heavy and silent. Ethan Cole woke to the distant hum of engines, low and steady. He stepped outside, and his heart dropped. Far on the horizon, dust clouds moved like a wall, a convoy of colony patrols heading straight for him. They had found him inside the workshop, Lyra, Nilo, and Marin sat together. Unaware of what was coming, Ethan forced a smile. "It's all right. Just stay quiet. Remember the game." He handed Lyra the small crystal shard she had found the night before. "If anything happens, you hold on to this, okay?" he whispered. She nodded. Her glowing eyes wide with fear and trust, Ethan turned toward his old comms terminal. He could hear the patrols broadcasting warnings, scanning for unauthorized alien life. He tried to jam the signal again, but this time the interference was too strong. They were locking on to the Valari energy signature inside his home. There was no hiding now. Minutes later, the convoy arrived. Vehicles surrounding the workshop in a tight circle. Armed soldiers stepped out, led by a tall officer with sharp eyes and a cold tone. "Ethan Cole," he called out. "You are harboring unregistered alien entities by law. You are to surrender immediately." Ethan's chest tightened, but he didn't move. He stood at the door, hands raised slightly, blocking the entrance. "There are no threats here," he said firmly. "Only children," the officer frowned. "Children?" he repeated with disbelief. Then he gestured, and two soldiers approached the door. Scanners in hand, Ethan took a deep breath, his voice calm but shaking. "Listen, whatever you think you know, you're wrong. Their mother died in that crash. I'm just keeping them alive," the officer sneered. "Alive? For what purpose? To breed more contamination." At that word, Ethan's jaw clenched. "They're not contamination. They're innocent." Behind him, a faint sound broke the tension. Lyra's voice, small and trembling. "Da. Da." Everyone froze. The soldiers hesitated, one looking at the other. Then, from behind Ethan, three small figures peeked through the door, their eyes glowing like soft stars. Gasps rippled through the patrol. The officer's face hardened. "Take them," he ordered. Ethan moved instantly, blocking the doorway. "You'll have to go through me," he said quietly. The officer raised his hand. "Stand down, Cole. Don't be stupid." But Ethan didn't move. Lyra clung to his leg, tears in her eyes. Nilo and Marin hid behind him, trembling. The soldiers stepped forward, weapons ready. But something unexpected happened. The blue mark on Ethan's hand flared with light. A soft wave of energy spread through the air. Every human soldier paused as the light touched them. Not heat, not force, but emotion. They felt what the children felt: fear, love, longing. Even the officer stepped back, confused. "What? What is this?" Ethan looked down at the triplets, then back at the soldiers. "They can feel us," he said softly. "And now you can feel them too." For a long moment, no one spoke, the desert wind the only sound between hearts. Then, one soldier lowered his weapon, whispering, "Sir, they're just kids." But before anything could change, the officer barked. "Enough, that's an order." He pressed his wrist calm, calling the higher command, requesting capture team. Code Delta, alien imprint confirmed. Ethan realized what he had done. He had revealed the imprint. The sacred bond Vera had passed to him. Now, every scanner on the colony would register it. Every government channel would hear the alert. He looked at the sky, desperate. "Vera, if you can hear me, help us," he whispered. And then, as if the universe answered, the air shifted. A low hum rolled across the dunes, deep and melodic. The soldiers looked up, shielding their eyes. Above them, clouds spiraled, and light poured down like rain. A massive ship descended, silver and blue, shaped like flowing water, alive with moving patterns. It was not human. It was Valari. The officer stumbled backward, shouting, "All units, fall back." But the ship ignored them, hovering silently above the sand. A beam of soft light touched the ground. and from it stepped a tall, luminous figure, a Valari emissary. Her eyes glowed the same hue as Vera's once had, and she spoke in a calm, echoing voice. "The Queen's imprint lives." In him, Ethan stood frozen, the triplets behind him. The emissary approached slowly, kneeling to look at the children. "They carry royal light," she said softly. "The heirs of Valari." She turned to Ethan, her gaze both gentle and awed. "And you, human? You bear the mark of their guardian." Ethan blinked, lost for words. "Guardian," he repeated. She nodded. "By our ancient code, the one chosen by the Queen's bond is their father, by spirit. By blood of the heart." The soldiers around them lowered their weapons slowly. Unsure what to do, the officer tried to argue, shouting into his com, but no one answered. The Valari ship jammed every signal. The emissary looked at him with calm authority. "Leave this place, human soldiers. This man and these children are under Valari protection." Then she looked at Ethan once more. "Come with us, father of 3 worlds." Ethan looked down at Lyra, Nilo, and Marin, who held tightly to his arms. He felt the mark on his hand pulsing, warm and alive. He didn't know what lay ahead, exile, danger, or peace, but he knew one thing for certain. He would never leave them. He nodded once, softly. "If I go, they go with me." The emissary smiled faintly. "Of course." As the Valari beam lifted them into the air, the soldiers below watched in silence. For the first time, the colony saw not enemies, but a family, strange, fragile, and united. The officer lowered his weapon, whispering to himself. "What have we just witnessed?" The ship rose higher, disappearing into the dawn sky, leaving behind the quiet desert and a story that would echo across both worlds. A human who defied his own kind, and in doing so, became something greater, a bridge between species, a father beyond blood. The stars stretched wide across the night as the Valari ship drifted through the void. Ethan Cole stood near the glass window, staring at the endless expanse of space beside him. The 3 small Valari children, Lyra, Nilo, and Marin, pressed their glowing hands against the glass, gasping softly at the beauty beyond. It was their first time seeing the stars, not as distant lights, but as living fire all around them. Ethan smiled faintly, his heart full yet heavy. The Valari emissary, Saraya, stepped beside him, her presence calm and radiant. "You did what most of your kind would never dare," she said softly. "You chose compassion over fear." Ethan shook his head, his voice low. "I didn't plan any of this. I just couldn't let them die." Saraya smiled gently. "That is why the Queen chose you. The bond doesn't follow logic. It follows heart." Days passed aboard the ship as they traveled toward the Valari homeworld. The triplets grew stronger, playing in the glowing corridors, learning new words from Saraya's crew. They called her aunt, they called Ethan Da, and they filled every quiet space with laughter. But beneath the joy, tension brewed. The human colony had issued a transmission to the Galactic Council, accusing Ethan Cole of harboring alien royalty. The Valari had responded with their own claim, that Ethan was now guardian by sacred law. Protected under interspecies code, the 2 worlds were now watching him. When the ship arrived at Valari Prime, Ethan's breath caught. The planet was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Oceans that glowed silver, cities built into living trees that shimmered like crystal, skies of eternal dusk filled with floating lanterns. As they descended, thousands of Valari gathered below, singing in one voice, a melody that vibrated through his chest. Saraya turned to him. "They are singing for their queen's children." Ethan swallowed hard. "And for a man who doesn't belong." Saraya looked at him firmly. "No, Ethan Cole, for a man who made belonging possible." He stepped out of the ship with the triplets holding his hands. The crowd fell silent, their glowing eyes reflecting his human form, strange. Rough and mortal, an elder Valari floated forward. Her presence commanding, she placed her hand over his and bowed. By our code, you are bound by imprint, by light, and by love. The Queen's children are yours. Ethan bowed slightly, unsure how to respond. I'll protect them with my life, he said quietly. The elder smiled. You already have. Over the weeks that followed, Ethan was given a small home near the Temple of Stars. He worked with Valari engineers, learning their ways. Teaching them human technology, he built new systems to merge human mechanics with Valari organic designs. Together, they created things neither species could have made alone. Glowing machines that breathed, and engines that sang. The triplets watched him work. Helping in small ways, learning fast, growing faster. Lyra learned to speak both languages fluently. Nilo became fascinated with building tools. And Marin, wild and bold, began climbing every tree she could find. Their laughter echoed across the silver forests like wind chimes. But peace was never simple. One evening, Saraya came to him with a grim look. The council wants to meet you, she said. Humans and Valari both. They must decide what happens next. Ethan nodded slowly, already expecting it. The next day, he stood in the great hall, a vast chamber filled with diplomats from across the stars. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with fear. A human general spoke first. His tone sharp. Ethan Cole, you broke interplanetary law. You interfered with non-human life. Ethan met his gaze calmly. I saved a mother and her children. I broke a law, yes. But I kept a promise. The Valari elder rose, her voice echoing. And through that promise, peace was born. The hall murmured. Tension crackling in the air. The human general leaned forward. And what do you propose now, Cole? Are you their savior or their hostage? Ethan looked at the triplets sitting beside him, their small hands clutching his sleeve. I'm their father, he said softly. That's all. Silence filled the room, a heavy human silence. Then Lyra stood, trembling but brave, her voice clear. He's our dad. Every translator in the chamber echoed her words in 100 languages. Something shifted in that moment, a truth that needed no politics, no law, no science, just love. The council adjourned that day without a verdict. But everyone knew the decision had already been made. From that moment on, Ethan Cole was no longer just a mechanic from a forgotten colony. He was the bridge, the living proof that empathy could connect galaxies. Years passed, and the story of the human father and the alien children spread across systems. Songs were written, monuments built, schools taught his name as a symbol of unity. And every morning, Ethan would stand by his window, watching Lyra, Nilo, and Marin play under the silver skies. They called him Dad, but to the galaxy, he had become something far greater, the father of 3 worlds. One quiet evening, as the twin moons rose, Lyra looked at him and whispered, Dad, do you think Mom can see us? Ethan smiled softly, eyes glimmering. I think she's the light in every star. The triplets hugged him tightly, their glowing hands warm against his chest. The wind carried their laughter across the silver trees, and the stars seemed to pulse brighter in that moment. Ethan Cole, the man who once lived alone in the desert, realized the truth. Family wasn't about blood. It was about love that defied the laws of worlds. And in the silence of the cosmos, somewhere beyond sight, a gentle voice, familiar and loving, whispered back, Thank you, my human.